This episode of the Cult Popture podcast was brought to you by our Patreon. If you want to tell us which films we should watch, get up to 2 extra exclusive podcasts a month, give us something to talk about in the post-credit scenes at the end of each episode, or even contribute to the discussion in the episode itself, then please consider joining the cult and donating at www.patreon.com/cultpopture. Hey, Richard. In celebration of WWE star John Cena, who's starring in the films we're about to talk about. You can't see me because my webcam broke.
That's a very funny joke that only works for one person, and it's me, and I loved it. Thank you so much for that exclusive joke. And if you want more exclusive jokes, you can have about 2.5 hours of them every month if you head over to our Patreon, patreon.com/cultpopture, where we do exclusive podcasts over there for different tiers if you sign up.
A reasonable fee. At
a reasonable fee. I won't tell you. You have to go there and find out, so you don't go, oh, that's too much money, I'm not signing up. You're going to have to go, I wonder how much money
I'm already here.
Yeah, So that's our plug up top. And while we're plugging things up top, go to the Discord, email us, cultpopturemedia@gmail.com. Not enough people email us, Text us.
No, not really.
Text us 021.
I also, it just occurred to me as well that you said that joke only works for one person, being you. It actually works for everyone experiencing this podcast in any form. But that is also true of every other podcast we've ever done. Yeah. So you can't see me is just applicable to every podcast we've done.
And
Hi, everyone.
Most people do. I mean, I guess you do get a lot of video podcasts.
Yeah, you do.
You're like Joe Rogan and Elon Musk smoking some tight kush. You can see that.
Welcome along, everybody, to Film Franchise Fortnights. This is on the Cult Popture podcast where we, myself, AJ, and Richard,
get a little bit silly.
We plug the Patreon up top. In 2022, we plug our Patreons up top. It's self-care.
In 2019, it was hashtag Ask Everyone. In 2022, it's hashtag plug the Patreon up top.
Yeah.
Hashtag plug the Patreon up top 2022. Tell your friends. Everyone tweet 2 people with hashtag plug the Patreon up top 2022.
Okay.
And if everyone does that, I'll send you a Cult Popture patch. We've still got a lot of them.
We ordered them and then immediately gave up selling them.
Yeah, I've got a bag sitting next to my computer. So if you want one, that's how you get one. Hashtag plug the Patreon up top 2022.
Very confusing call to action, but I'll let you do your thing.
So this is Film Franchise Fortnights. This is a show on the Cult Popture podcast where we talk about a different film franchise every month, and we've covered everything from Godzilla to Godfather by way of God's Not Dead. And
very good.
We've kind of done the entire spectrum of quality there. I mean, even Godfather, Godzilla, God's Not Dead, that's the spectrum right there of great, middle, and bad. But
it's more a triangle, of great, crazy, and bad, right? Like Godzilla being like quite long and arduous and very strange, that's also the third characteristic of franchises.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to stick to my spectrum analogy.
I'll stick to my triangle.
Oh, well, okay. Some people might argue we might not have done the whole spectrum because it goes a little bit further than God's Not Dead. God's Not Death. I was just thinking about the show Our Flag Means Death, and that's what I said that.
That's so funny. We said you were like charging so confidently.
I was.
This
is another thing I'm trying in season 7 is that I'm trying to be more confident in what I say and get less ums and less Googling things because people have said they love that and I love to disappoint the fans.
You've said this to me before when I've screwed up something that like that would have sounded really cool if you didn't fuck it up.
Yeah. So what some, including the website letterboxd.com and Rotten Tomatoes, really most any website that is aware of these films will tell you that the Fred trilogy of films is some of the worst films ever made. And the fact that there's 3 of them and they're all in the same franchise and they're all the worst movies ever made means that surely this should be the worst franchise ever made. We have a segment at the end of the show, stick around for that, where we rank the franchise amongst the 151 franchises we've covered for this podcast. And yeah, will it be at the bottom? Well, you'll have to stick around and find out. No skipping ahead. I'll know if you did it, and I won't send you a patch, even if you do. Hashtag plug the Patreon up top 2022.
There's going to be a password later randomly placed in the show that you need to use as well. The hashtag. You don't skip ahead, but you can put us on 2.5 speed, in which we would sound like the hero of this franchise, Fred Figglehorn himself.
Fred Figglehorn, who you may know from YouTube. He's a character created by Lucas Cruikshank.
Love the surname Cruikshank.
It's
Love
good,
it.
eh? Calvin Cruikshank.
It's such a it sounds medieval.
Yeah, it's like Iscariot.
Yeah, okay.
Iscariot, very cool last name.
Cruikshank.
Are you disagreeing with me?
I don't disagree, not necessarily. No. I think Cruikshank is cooler.
Okay.
And you're not going to get a lot of Iscariots these days. God, can you imagine? But hey, to the credit, you also don't get a lot of Christs. So,
well, apparently that's not even his fucking last name.
Cruikshank.
And also, Jesus' middle initial isn't H as well. Apparently.
That's not from the Bible.
Yeah, which is why it's crazy. Anyway, yeah. So there's 3 films we're talking about: Fred the movie, Fred 2, Night of the Living Fred, and Fred 3, Camp Fred. But a little bit of background on the character of Fred Figglehorn, because this is kind of a unique series where they're based on a YouTube character created for YouTube. So yeah, Fred was created by Lucas Cruikshank in 2006, who at the time would have been he was born in 83. He would have been 13 when he started, and he had this YouTube channel called JKL Productions, which was his cousins John and Kate, who he made a bunch of videos where just like trying out different characters, and then one of them just blew up, and it was this character called Fred, who was a 6-year-old who was like in preschool, talks in this very high-pitched, yelly, screaming kind of voice. And Fred on Halloween was the first video where he talks about his borrowing his mum's witch costume to dress up as a wizard. And then the first like actual part of the Fred series was called Fred on May Day, which was released in 2008.
Can you think of all the like bullshit like stories and characters you would have made up when you're 13?
Yeah.
And think about the idea that one of those characters goes on to headline a trilogy of films. That's,
with John Cena.
And with John Cena. And you know what? You can tell. You can tell that this is a trilogy headlined by a character invented by a 13-year-old.
Yeah. So the character of Fred, it changes for the movies, but the character of Fred in the YouTube channel, he lives with his grandmother and his mother, who's a recovering drug-addicted and alcoholic stripper, and Fred was the victim of child abuse, and his father, is a former rock musician, is currently on death row in state penitentiary.
So a lot more grown up like adult humor in the YouTube series then, I imagine.
And yeah, it's pretty much just him speaking to the audience about what's happening in his life. And
listen, guys, if you haven't heard Fred, if you haven't ever seen Fred, watch 4 seconds of a video so you can get in the right headspace. He's got his voice is modulated to sound like a chipmunk, and yeah, like it's very.
Can you do the voice?
It's very annoying.
Can you do the voice? We need in previous episodes we've done the Terminator. We made a rule that you're not allowed to do the Arnold Schwarzenegger voice during the episode. We may have done something similar for James Bond they're not doing Sean Connery impressions. But I think for Fred, we shouldn't stop doing them.
Okay. I can give it a go without, like, he's not doing it though. It should be said. Like, so
a little. He's doing it a little bit.
So okay, I've got to lean back from the mic. I have to move away from the mic to breathe in, much like another internet celebrity
who turned down being on this podcast.
Because he follows everyone on Twitter, so we got to send him a DM.
Yeah, and but he said he would, but he doesn't like movies.
That's right.
Which is the only person I've ever heard
what's
say
his
that.
name again?
Tezonde.
Tezonde. All right, here's my Fred impression. Okay.
Hey everyone, it's Fred!
Was that good?
That was alright, yeah.
Like, imagine
Hey,
that.
it's Fred! Oh my god! Oh my god!
He says, "Oh my gamut," which is apparently some kind of amalgamation of "oh my god" and "god damn it."
Well, yeah, it's taking out the odd of God damn it.
Odds not dead. All right, well, I've hurt my voice deeply doing that, so that's good up top of the podcast. Continue.
I've hurt my voice highly.
Because
it's a
I'm going to take a
high-pitched
sip
voice.
of water.
So, so Fred was given his own film in 2010. It was made to be a theatrical release, but it instead premiered on Nickelodeon in the States, but did come out in the UK in cinemas.
What?
Yeah.
My God. I think this might be the worst film I've ever seen to get a theatrical release.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I saw Dune Part 1. And that was, at least Fred the movie is a whole movie.
Actually, I don't know if that's even a fair thing to say about Fred the movie.
Oh, yeah. Anyway.
Fred the movie.
Well, the thing is, at least Fred knows how much story to put in its movie, its runtime, you know?
Does it? So Fred the movie is an 80-minute film which has about a YouTube video's length worth of storyline. But basically, he is in love with his next door neighbor Judy. And when Judy moves,
Judy?
Pixie Lott.
Yeah, and it's a big deal. Like on the cover, it says like Pixie Lott's film debut.
Well, presumably, I think Judy was maybe in the YouTube series, but you never saw her. Maybe. Right. I might be just making that up. I might be just assuming that. That feels like something you would do in the movie, right? You'd find. Oh,
it's in the cast.
It's like how,
for the
how
movie.
Bruce Willis voiced Spike in Rugrats. And a character we're familiar with, but now that we're making a movie with them in it, we'll give them a famous person.
Yeah, that is. Yeah, I could understand that. It does. So on here it says I couldn't find any. It's not on the. Maybe there's a Fredpedia or something.
Wikifredia.
Yeah, I'm gonna see if there's a Fred wiki in a sec. But so it says Pixie Lott is Judy, Fred's love interest. In contrast to the web series, Judy is nice, beautiful, and caring girl with an English accent and seems to care for Fred. So presumably she's just a horrible, ugly American girl in the series who hates Fred.
Well, I mean, and it's important to stress, I'm pretty sure the YouTube series is like filmed by himself in his backyard, so it's not like it's, a lot of, I don't think continuity needs to be taken into account.
Oh, there's a Figglehorn wiki. Here we go.
Okay. So she moves house and he's in love with her. She knows he exists, but doesn't really care about him. And so he decides to go on the perilous journey to find her. And that is 100% of what the movie's about.
Well, no. So the whole thing is, and he shows up, and she's having this party that he wasn't invited to, and he's so shocked that he fucking vomits all over Judy,
which is a funny beat.
And then it gets posted to YouTube, and then Fred decides to throw a party which he's not going to invite anyone to in an attempt to get revenge, and then so he makes a fake party with Bertha, played by Jeanette McCurdy, who apparently is a big get for this movie. I don't know.
And does not reprise her role in the sequels.
Yeah, Jeanette McCurdy's a name I've heard. I understand. I think she's in iCarly. Is that right?
Correct.
Yeah, and that she, I guess was a big celebrity. iCarly, a series I saw. My first exposure to iCarly was this afternoon when I watched a video of Lucas Cruikshank reacting to his appearance as Fred on iCarly. But I think we'll probably come back to that. Okay. So they end up making this viral video of like the super cool party that everyone missed out on, and then everyone realizes, oh man, I missed out on Fred's totally cool party. And then Judy's like, well, now that you're popular according to this YouTube video, I want to bang you. And Fred's like, yeah.
So you've done something really annoying here, Richard, which is you have described the film quite cohesively there. Like what you just said sounds like a first, second, and third act. The stuff you've described takes place in about 10 minutes. Yeah. And the remaining 70 is a film crew desperate to fill in the time with non sequiturs and random sketches that mean nothing. Like it is a meandering movie.
Well, I would call it an episodic movie. It's
okay, sure.
It's a series of vignettes. And I don't think that you can necessarily use that as like a knock against the film. There's plenty of films that are like that. Dune Part 1, for instance.
It's not though. You could have said like God's Not Dead's kind of like that.
Well, no, it's God's Not Dead has. I mean, maybe kind of, but you do get movies where
The French Dispatch.
Yeah, well, it's a series of vignettes or like essentially comedy sketches. I will admit you quite often see that in not very good movies, whereas something like The French Dispatch or Grand Budapest is more like an anthology movie, I would say. But this is
Fred the movie an anthology movie? By more saying that this movie has the aura of not knowing what to do next. And, like, they say that the quest at the heart of it is he's going to find Judy's new house. And then they're like, so he goes to the forest.
And there's a guy there that
There's a guy there.
Stay
with me. Stay with me. Then he goes to the beach. And Bertha's she buries him in the sand. Like, this is how the movie feels. And what the thing that I thought was so funny about this movie, and that like it's like this one of these things that you see in bad movies where they screw up like a bare minimum story structure requirement that I thought was so funny was that. So the movie is about he wants to get in with this girl that doesn't know he exists.
Yeah, the tagline for the film is the epic journey to find Judy.
And along the way, he is joined by Bertha, played by Jeanette McCurdy in this film, whom, among other things, is shown to have a lot more time for him, a lot more patience for him, a lot more care for him, and they form a friendship. And what this leads to in, I'm going to say it, every single other movie that does this plot device. That leads to is by the end of the movie, when Judy does go, hey, now that I've seen that you're rich and popular, I want to be with you now. Any other movie would have the main character go, no, I've actually found that the one I want is Bertha, the one who was with me before I was cool and famous. This movie seems to not even know it's doing this cliche, because it just ends with Judy going into his house and Bertha's not seen again. And mild spoilers for the next two films, but like in the second one, Judy's gone from the whole film. I think she's moved away, and there is again kind of like a continuation of this budding love story between Bertha and Fred. It's subtle, but it's there. And then she's just pretty much not in the third one. So this, like, even the argument that, they're saving it for the sequels is not valid because then it just doesn't happen in the third one. There's no payoff, and Bertha deserves Fred.
Yeah. So what did you think of the movie?
I thought it was bad, man. I thought it was bad, but I'll tell you what. It's not that bad.
Yeah, exactly. Like,
No, okay. It's bad in the sense that it's like watching just nonsense. You're watching something that's very, very clearly aimed at a demographic that I've not only grown out of, but also no longer exists in the demographic sphere. Like, there is nobody who wants to watch Fred anymore. They don't exist, right? And so in that sense, it's really bad, but there is some juvenile dumb stuff in it, less so in this one, more so in the second two, that made me laugh. And I'll say it, I think when Fred screams, it is unironically funny.
Yeah, absolutely, man. These movies, I had a good time watching these movies, I'll say that.
I had a good time maybe watching parts of the first two. I'm being very conservative with what I'm willing to give this movie.
This is going to be one of those things similar to God's Not Dead, where it's going to come across like I am praising these films, and part of me is like I got to be honest that. I think once we've kind of talked about all the films, we'll have a bit of a discussion about Fred as a character, or maybe it'll just come naturally at some point. But yeah, I think, yeah, I mean, I had a good time. And when I started watching this first movie, it did awaken some, like you say, juvenile, like immature part of me that was just like, it's funny. Like, he gets fucking body slammed by John Cena. He gets like smashed through the living room table, and I'm like, in what world is that not funny? Yeah, like, and just the idea of a character that just reacts to everything with this high pitched scream is like, I'm sorry, that's pretty damn funny.
like it's fucking annoying. But when I was 11, I thought this kind of thing was very funny.
And I think I was able to unlock that side of me still, like, and it's this begrudging laughter, which makes it so much funnier when, when like the funniest shit that's ever happened in your life is when you can't laugh because it's 3 a.m. and your friend's mum is a psycho. Like,
that Onion headline that's like devastating. The worst person you know just made a great point. This is like devastating. The worst comedy you've ever seen just made you laugh.
Yeah, like every 5 minutes, like these films. There's enough like reoccurring bits that actually made me laugh out loud in these films or giggle. That I was like, these are nowhere near the worst movies I've ever seen because they elicited a joyous response once in a while. I watched The Bubble recently, the new Netflix movie about making a film during COVID, and that film is so like. It's a comedy film, so I feel like it's somewhat comparable. That watching like a bad comedy film, to be a truly, truly awful comedy film, it can't make you laugh. I would say. Whereas
I think you're being ludicrously generous to Fred Richard.
Well, I think that's why not be ludicrous, AJ? We're talking about I'm 29 years old and I'm analyzing the Fred trilogy on the 7th season of my podcast. Why can't I be a little ludicrous?
Fair enough. You've convinced me.
So, watching a film like The Bubble, which is a bunch of celebrities got together during COVID and thought, you know what? Let's make a movie. What about this? And then they go, all right, let's get Judd Apatow and we'll all just like band together. And they go to this mansion in the middle of nowhere and they start making a movie. And every single scene in the movie is they go, all right, okay, in this scene, you're fighting because the shoot's not going well. All right, let's get a camera to have a close-up of Karen Gillan. Let's have a camera on a close-up of Pedro Pascal, and then we'll get a wide. All right, and action, say something funny. And then they just kind of stand at each other and they'll sort of talk. One of them will try and make a joke. The other one won't really pick up on it. And then Eventually, they go, all right, yeah, let's move on to the next scene, cut, and they just kind of, and the whole movie's like that. Whereas this is such a, this is such a specific type of humor, and it's so consistent throughout the movie that this is someone's
a better
voice
creative vision than the bubble.
And that's what you're saying. And like this was written by David A. Goodman, who was like he worked quite a bit on Family Guy. He wrote the Star Trek episode of Futurama where no fan has gone before. He worked on Family Guy, Simpsons, Futurama, and so it's like he's a decently talented writer. He wrote the film. Clay, the director, hasn't done anything major, but yeah, and obviously Lucas.
What's the director's name again?
Clay Weiner. But yeah, I think that just that
Clay Weiner, I hardly know it.
that like specificity and that idiosyncrasy is what makes the film, at the very least, interesting. And I would much rather watch this than just a boring, like, churned out a machine, people improvising at each other who aren't improv comedians.
Okay.
And so that's why Fred, the movie, cannot be the worst comedy I've ever seen. I'm sorry.
And what does this have on Rotten Tomatoes?
Famously, this film has 0% on Rotten Tomatoes, but what would you guess? The other two don't have audience scores, or don't have tomato meter scores, but what would you guess the audience score is for this film?
14.
38%.
Okay, that's still rather unnotable.
Yeah.
So no one liked it.
Well, 38% of people did.
What did you rate it on Letterboxd?
I think I don't have my Letterboxd open. I'll need to get it up for when we ranked that franchise. My favorite segment of the show. Okay, I gave it 1.5 stars.
Okay, interesting. After all that, I hear what you're saying, and
no, like this is one of those films. Like, okay, what, like, yeah, you turn on your podcast app. Oh, my favorite podcast is doing a series about the Fred movies. Oh, I'm sure it's probably going to be like every other fucking, video essay, which like, oh my God, they're covering Fred. What a wacky thing.
And it's dozens of these.
3 hours long and they're all just like, Fred, the movie, so stupid and bad. And I hate this little kid who got given a movie and made a dumb movie. That's not fucking interesting. Like, you can go to any corner of the internet and see people shitting on Fred the movie. And so I am forced to come here and defend this movie
in the name
I
of
didn't
content.
like. And you know what? Like, maybe I did like the movie. Maybe that's what I'm describing. But I think this is so much more interesting than I Hate Everything's hour-long video on Fred.
Yeah, sure. I think I'm more inclined to join you on this praise of Fred in the sequel. But before we move on there, I do just want to say hands down the craziest part of the first film is we mentioned that they fake a party to make it look like Fred is real popular.
Yeah.
And the way they do this is they get a bunch of like mannequins and basically Home Alone it. So they make like all these contraptions and
Right.
with like clever filmmaking make it look like it's full of people. It is not told to you, the audience, that this is what they're doing until after the montage of them doing it. And boy, was I in a trance watching them like get a bunch of mannequins moving around on threads and like dancing and just not knowing what the fuck was supposed to be happening. It was just baffling to me. I was so like, my God, like is there a director? Is Clay Weiner even here? Like, because this looks more like they just gave Jeanette McCurdy and Lucas Cruikshank a camera and just went, do whatever.
Yeah, he did actually. I also watched a video of Lucas Cruikshank reacting to Fred the movie that he made in 2021, which highly recommend. Again, we'll get more to Lucas Cruikshank later on, I'm sure, but it's such a fun and funny video of him watching this. He had to illegally download the film to watch it because he's like, it's not on anything. I don't have a copy of it. So he had to like download it, which also speaks to the difficulty we had with these films. Dan from Hawaii, who got us into this whole mess, sent me a copy of it because he had downloaded it and I couldn't find a place to download it. And then
Fuck you, Dan.
the second two films I had to rent. I rented the second one on the Microsoft Store, and the third one in between. It's today's Saturday. We're recording this in between Thursday and Saturday. The third one was removed from the Microsoft Store, and I then had to find it on Apple TV and rent it there. So this is the first time in, like, God, since I think the first time we did The Mummy, maybe, or one of the Godzilla. There's one other time I've spent money on getting the films.
I've spent money on. I've rented dozens of these movies off YouTube.
Yeah, not me, not this guy. But I mean, there's a bunch I own on DVD and stuff like that, and a bunch are on
but not Fred.
Streaming services that you can, I indirectly paid for or whatever. But Fred, I actually had to specifically for those movies put down money for. But did you notice? In this film, AJ, have you ever seen the movie Gummo by Harmony Korine?
Yeah, I have.
Did you notice the reference to it?
No, but my flatmate, also named Lucas, will be delighted to know there's a Gummo reference in Fred the movie.
Yeah, so Gummo, it's a very experimental film. Harmony Korine's kind of a wacky director, and it was his directorial debut. And yeah, I believe it's on the Criterion Collection. It's a pretty widely well-regarded film, one that you wouldn't expect to see reference to in Fred the movie. So there's a shot in Gummo. I'm not sure.
Actually, sorry, it's not well regarded.
Oh, really?
No, it's like, I mean, I guess you could call it divisive, but
right.
Well,
that's just Harmony
Korine. Fucking hate
it?
This movie.
Yeah,
it's got 37% on Rotten Tomatoes. I don't think it's Criterion.
Right, but it's that kind of, like, I don't know. People like Harmony Korine.
It's art house.
Yeah, it's art house. But so there's a shot in the movie in Gummo. I'm not sure the context of it or anything like that, but he's sitting in the bathtub and there's a piece of bacon taped to the wall. Is that just something random that happens that's in Gummo and then isn't addressed?
Yeah, it's like quite an iconic kind of image from Gummo.
Yeah, so at the start of Fred, the movie, there's bacon taped to the wall when Fred's in the bathtub.
Ah.
And so Reddit user Fauntleroy Sampedro reached out to Clay Weiner on Twitter, on Instagram, sorry, and posted screenshots of his conversation with him, and said, "Hey man, I know this is fucking weird, but I need to get to the bottom of this. Did you direct the Fred movie? Because I was watching a clip and I noticed bacon taped to the wall, which seems to be a reference to Harmony Korine's Gummo. Is this intentional?" And then attached screenshots of it. Clay Weiner said, "'Twas me." And he said, "So the bacon taped to the wall is a Gummo reference, or is it a coincidence?" And Clay said, "The movie is layered with all sorts of Easter eggs like that. You got good eyes." And he said, "I can't tell if you're fucking with me, but I appreciate the compliment. Apparently all the time spent at my local art cinema was worth something. I wouldn't do that. Appreciate you noticing. Thank you. Next time I watch Gummo, I will think of Fred Figglehorn. Thanks to you."
That is bananas, that not only is there a Gummo reference, but there's allegedly dozens of art house. That's very funny.
That's
to make,
so funny.
Like, the worst movie ever made and plug it full of quite intelligent art house.
Well, make the worst movie ever made
references.
and then reference it years later and Fred the movie. Zing. Yeah, I mean, I would love to get in contact with Clay Weiner and maybe I'll just reach out to him on Instagram and be like, "Hey, you told someone else there's dozens. What are they?" So,
ask everyone 2019.
Yeah, hashtag plug the Patreon up top. 2022. So sometimes with these kind of movies where we feel like we don't have a lot to talk about, it's fun to grab reviews. And Fred's one of those movies where it's like, famous for its reviews. I did find a couple that I wanted to talk about. So one, and I think I'll read it how I imagine it's supposed to be read. It's called "I Don't Want to Live on This Planet Anymore" from Adrenaline Dragon 6, January 2019. Mm-hmm. This talentless hack had over 1 million subscribers on YouTube. Yeah, let that sink in. Screw Fred, screw YouTube, and screw Netflix for putting this in my recommendations list. It was just an annoying teenager screaming, saying stupid crap, and acting dumb all the time. I don't know how a single animal could find this funny. If you ever need to torch someone a Clockwork Orange style, this is the perfect movie. 0 out of 10. So what I like there is that this person's been just as whiny as they're complaining about Fred being. And I think that really highlights the irony. And I think that a lot of people don't like Fred the movie because they're seeing the worst parts of themselves in it. Then there's another one here, which this is a very, very long review. I'm not going to read all of it. It's called The Line, "Hey, it's Fred," only goes so far, and to have it in an 84-minute movie is sickening. And it says, "It is clear Nickelodeon is proud to have Fred on their network. He's been in episodes of the popular kids show iCarly. He has his own film, and Nick is even talking about a franchise and a sequel to go along with the movie. So it's pretty clear Nickelodeon thinks they've invested in a gold mine when truthfully no one is laughing. Everyone sits with a dry expression on their face watching this overly energetic kid bounce around like he's on super marijuana or just took 100 pills to keep you awake. It's dreadful to watch the title character try to do comedy when really nothing he does gets a chuckle." That's one of like about 12 paragraphs, but yeah, the sort of the self-importance of I'm making fun of this gay kid. Lucas Cruikshank, who plays Fred, has come out as gay in the years in 2014. I think he came out officially. But yeah, I don't know, and that's I guess as well the other thing of like that this is a child who was given a movie and made what he thought was funny, and everyone's going, "That's so stupid and lame," and it's like, okay, do you feel like a big man, like being being a presumably this guy I think is like an established film reviewer, and it's like, oh man, you really showed it to that child, that literal child. And so that's why I'm kind of like, what's the point just having another podcast where we just shit on the Fred movies?
No, I love this. I am loving Richard in defending Fred mode. I think you've turned me around completely. This is much funnier.
And I teased on the Discord to you earlier that we would talk about this, but I feel a similar way about Rebecca Black's Friday. People on the Discord today were, I don't know how it came up, but were saying like, Friday's not that bad, and you were like, this is insane. It is. But it's the same thing. It's like, this is a kid who was given a present by her parents to just make a song so that she could have a day in the studio making a song and recording a music video from this, this service that just does that for kids.
Yeah.
And somehow people found this and went, look at this awful thing.
No, I don't want to dwell on Rebecca Black's Friday for too long, but I said this in the Discord as well. Like, it would not have gotten famous if it was not that bad. I think, because it got famous by accident as well. So, as you say, it was like the service.
This wasn't a girl trying to start a music career and failing. It was like...
But I don't think the criticisms of Rebecca Black's Friday are the same as the criticisms of Fred, like the ones you've just read out. I think Friday was far more celebrated. Like, as, oh my god, this is so wonderfully bad. Which is sort of what I was meaning.
But I also think that it's like, it's the same thing of like, what do you gain from making fun of a child having fun?
But that's fine. But I'm not saying that's what I'm doing with Rebecca Black's Friday. I'm saying it's such a bad concoction of elements that it becomes so funny, and people out there being like, it's not actually that bad of a song. It's like, no. It is. That's why you know of it. That's why.
It's also like, it depends on what you define as being a bad song, because I think with how catchy Friday is, I could sing you every goddamn word of that song. That can't be a truly bad song if it sticks in your head like that.
I don't know. I guess if that's your metric that you've decided on what makes a song good, I think
Well, maybe it fucking is.
Calm down.
No, you've got me worked up. I'm gonna scream.
Like I think of Friday, I think of when she just lists the days of the week and what she does on them as like such hilariously bad lyrics and things like that.
That's funny.
It is
That's funny, and Fred is funny.
But it's not funny because she wanted it to be. She wanted them to just be good lyrics. That's the funny part.
Well, I don't think
The Room.
She did. I think the studio that said,
okay, well,
here,
whatever.
pick one of these 3 songs, because that's what happened.
That's fine. That can also be true. And I think my point still stands.
And also, like, it's not even the worst song from that studio. Look up a song called My Jeans.
I know.
It's so
know.
much worse. The reason Rebecca Black's Friday got big is because it's the perfect combination of, like, stupid and catchy.
I would agree with that. I feel like people on the Discord were saying, like, musically, this, like, people blew up how, like, I think they were saying, like, they didn't get the joke more so than they were.
Sure. Anyway, last note on Rebecca Black's Friday. Last two notes on Rebecca Black's Friday.
Okay, interesting.
It would be funny if I just played the actual last two notes of the song. I don't have any kind of musical prowess. If Carlisle were here, he'd do it. But
he'd do it.
So one thing, Rebecca Black is great. She's another similar to Lucas Cruikshank, where she's got like a YouTube channel, TikTok, everything. That's actually quite funny and very self-aware on the hatred of it. But the other fun thing about Rebecca Black's Friday, the second verse, the cruising so fast I want time to fly, that they're poorly green screened, and she's got an awkward friend that's a gif. The skyline in the background of that shot, for some reason, is Auckland City with the Sky Tower removed.
Oh, that's hilarious. I didn't know that.
Yeah, like look it up. There's I can't remember what the actual building is, but the one that has like the circle on top of it, you can see that. And it's like, once you notice that, you're like, holy shit, that's Auckland, but they've taken the Sky Tower out because I guess that'll make it too recognizable.
That's like how the map of Pawnee and Parks and Rec is Christchurch.
Yeah, with the street names changed.
You and I live in the Parks and Rec and the Rebecca Black's Friday universes combined.
Yeah.
They're canon.
Yeah.
You said to me before we recorded this, I reckon we could do this in an hour. Approaching an hour and have two films still to talk about.
Well, yeah, I mean, like, most of my sort of, like, what I've spoken about already is more Fred as a concept, and I think that's still most of what I have to talk about. So, I know you've been keeping a list of, like, jokes that made you laugh. Are there any that you want to share? I don't know what you have planned for that.
None for Fred 1. I didn't do it for Fred 1, but for Fred 2 and 3 I made Google Docs called Jokes I Liked in Fred 2 and Jokes I Like in Fred 3. Somewhat the same kind of like vibe you were on, to be like, well, what is there to celebrate? What gold is in these dung hills?
In them there hills, yeah.
In them there hills.
Yeah, so Fred 2, Night of the Living Fred, came out in 2011. And yeah, what's this one about?
So Fred, it's
a comedic remake of Fright Night.
It is very similar to Fright Night. He's got a new music teacher who he thinks is a vampire, and the whole movie is basically him trying to prove this guy's a vampire. He starts dating Fred's mum at one point, and about 3/4 of the way through the film, he's invited round to this guy's house for dinner and he thinks it's because he's going to get eaten, but it actually turns out he's just a kind of eccentric guy, and Fred actually forms a kinship with him because he too is, a social pariah. But before he makes friends with him, but before that he was secretly live streaming, walking around this guy's house, and just before he found out he was all good, the camera cut out and it makes him look scary, and so this teacher then gets outcast again, and so the climax of the film is Fred making it look like actually Fred is the vampire, so that everyone will forgive Mr. Devlin. And it's structurally an infinitely better film, I thought. Yeah. The lack of structure that I was making fun of in the first film, that's gone completely, and there's a far stronger backbone and a far stronger narrative to this film, which, with various touch-ups, I don't think would be a bad movie. But it is a bad movie.
And now who's praising Fred?
It is it's still stupid.
No. I've turned you.
No, it's a bad movie, and here are a bunch of jokes that I liked in it.
Yes, please.
Okay. So this is a list I've written of jokes I liked in Fred 2. At the start, Fred goes to play the piano to show how good he is at playing piano.
Loved that.
But before he does, he cracks his knuckles, but instead of a cracking knuckles sound effect, a fart sound effect plays. And I cackled. I thought that was so funny. There's a part where Fred is making fun of his bully that lives across the road from him named Kevin, who's quite a main character in this franchise, and his mum is in the first two, and she is so funny, like legitimately just a comedic performance.
And his mum is played by Flo, the progressive lady, as well, for our American listeners.
Who's that?
From what I understand, she's she's like their Goldstein.
Okay.
For our New Zealand listeners.
Understood.
I'm not going to explain either reference.
So he runs into Kevin at this party, and Fred says, and by the way, this movie is like, at times, an explicit parody of Twilight. He says to Kevin, "You look like Robert Pattinson if he was stupid." Which I was, God, what a funny thing. That sounds like something I would say. Like if I was, trying to come up with a hilarious insult. There's a part where after he's sure that Mr. Devlin is a vampire, he writes down the name Devlin and works out it's an anagram of devil, N, or N-devil. And I thought that was a very Richard joke, to have 90% of an anagram intact, but then you're stuck with an extra letter. Like, because one extra letter crumbles an entire anagram, right? Like, then it's not an anagram at all. And I thought that was a good joke.
That there is crossover between what you think is a Richard joke and what you think is a good joke.
There's a scene, and because these films have like fantasy sequences a la Scrubs, when JD like imagines things, and there's a part where Mr. Devlin turns into, he's like, "I'm not a vampire, I'm an alien," and pulls his head skin off, and it turns out he's got a fly head, and he's called a mosquito man, and he like sucks the blood of Fred with like a giant mosquito nose. It's just a very creative piece of practical filmmaking that I thought was actually quite funny.
I believe no, never mind. Is it a proboscis?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. It's very Ned's Declassified School Survival Guide, I thought.
Yeah.
There's a part where Mr. Devlin is taking Fred's mom on a date, and he says that Fred's standing there at the doorway with him. This is my favorite joke in the whole franchise. And she's ready for the date, and he goes, "You look ravishing." And she's like, "Oh, stop." And he's like, "You look beautiful." And then Fred goes, "She said stop!" And I just thought that was so funny. What a great joke. Then while they're on the date, the mum says to Mr. Devlin, "You sure know how to treat a woman." And Mr. Devlin replies, "Well, I looked it up on the internet." There is another part where he goes to a Chinese restaurant to get a bunch of garlic sauce to kill the vampire with, and he opens a fortune cookie, and the fortune reads, "Your neighbor is a vampire." Whenever Kevin in the film is shown playing the piano, he's singing, "Everybody have fun tonight." And it's nothing. It's not a song.
That's great.
And it's so great. It reminded me of whenever you see them in universe play a song in Flight of the Conchords, it's "Who likes to rock the party?"
Yeah. Or in Arrested Development, "It's not easy being one."
And then finally there's a part where Fred is trying to figure out how to sort of make amends and save Mr. Devlin's reputation when he works out he's not actually a vampire. And so Fred like breaks the fourth wall and talks to the camera in these films, and he's trying to figure out what to do, and then he suddenly gets like a light bulb moment, and the shot is like him standing in the left corner of his lounge, and he goes, "Wait a minute." And then it cuts to him standing in the right corner, and he goes, "Wait a second." And then it cuts to him standing closer in the left corner, and he goes, "Wait a minute." And then it cuts to the other side. He goes, wait a second. And it plays out like, wait a minute, wait a second, wait a minute, wait a second. And like, again, it's like, that's done in the edit. That joke isn't in the script, I bet. That's just someone is editing. Which is where I think with a YouTube-based comic character, you're going to mine the most comedy from, right? Is in the edit. And so you get this point, which is very, very mid-2000s, very live, lava, live, if anybody ever watched that YouTube channel, where it's just like, wait a minute, wait a second, wait a minute, wait a second, and it just tickled, it scratched the itch in my brain, as the TikTok kids say, and those are the jokes that I liked in Fred 2.
All right, well, I mean, I don't really have anything else to say about Fred 2 if you want to move on to Fred 3. But
I'm trying to think if there's
do you know what? We
else.
fucking missed a segment.
What?
The French wise.
Oh, well, let's do it now. I mean, can we repurpose and say that you talking about Fred Heaps was that Lucas Crookshank was the French wise?
Yeah, that was my French. That was the French wise.
Well,
French wise being a segment where we go, why was this a franchise?
Why was this a franchise? Why? I mean, was this was obviously picked up by Nickelodeon.
Yeah, like that's the thing, because the thing about this one is that like Fred the movie is like tailor-made to be like, okay, this doesn't work in film, so why is there a second one? It like, people didn't like it, and like you would think that this would end the world's fascination with Fred, but I get like his YouTube channel must have still gone strong, and people thought, oh well, maybe. And I think like you kind of mentioned, the second film does fix a lot of problems with the first one, and go, okay, well, let's make it more like more like an actual movie. But yeah, it is interesting. The video I mentioned with Lucas Crookshank watching Fred in 2021, he mentions that this is the first time he's seen the movie since 2011, when a few days into shooting Fred 2, the director told him, you're not playing Fred right, go watch the first movie again. And that was the last time he watched the movie.
That's so interesting.
Yeah.
That's a genuinely interesting piece of behind the scenes trivia for these films. Yeah,
I mean, like, we should reach out to Lucas Crookshank.
Have we been too mean?
Hashtag plug the pod. I haven't.
I guess I haven't.
I'm going to get even less mean. Just you wait. So,
all right.
The one interesting thing that I noticed while watching Fred 2, and then we can move on to Fred 3 because, what else is there to say? That there's a few points that there's like, at the start of the movie, I think he makes a sandwich and he like offers it to you, the audience. Did you notice this in the film, that there was a few things like that were like, was this supposed to be in 3D?
No, not at all. But
there was like 3 or 4 things I noticed throughout the movie. This was shot in 3D, and they were going to make this like Fred the movie 3D with a theatrical release. So they shot it with 3D cameras.
It's not even the third film in the franchise.
But then, they ended up airing it on TV. So obviously, it wasn't 3D, and they just, took, I guess, one lens of the 3D camera and made it a 2D movie.
One thing we probably should talk about is John Cena, who reappears in this film as not Fred's dad, but who Fred is imagining his estranged dad
and they
is.
fucking go to WWE and fight his teacher.
And we put it on our Instagram, this shot of Lucas Crookshank in his pajamas standing next to a very stoic and steadfast looking John Cena, and Fred is saying, oh my gamut. And like, let's briefly
Again, how is that not funny?
It is, that's what I'm saying. Like, it is funny, and like, it's like if this was made in a better movie and like in the world of the movie, someone made a really bad movie and this was the movie they made, then it would be hilarious. I think it's the fact that they were earnestly trying to be genuinely funny that is what turns people off. But if you watch these, again, it's like God's Not Dead. If you watch them like outsider art, then like it's gummo. It's fucking gummo. Like it's the same thing. And like I just the shot of with John Cena and the WWE scene, which presumably had to have been shot at a live WWE.
It's so funny.
Which is like, that means like, what is the crossover of these two audiences?
Surely a far cry from like when Sylvester Stallone came out after decades gone, returning as Rocky Balboa at a boxing match. That like Yeah, hey, we've got this fucking kid in pajamas to fight a
my
vampire with John Cena.
And, like, it's just funny, like, good luck getting John Cena to do another Fred movie now, you know? Like, he's not coming back.
So a month ago, John Cena talked about the Fred movies.
Oh my god, really?
Yeah, like doing, well, it might have been slightly longer ago, but it was within the year. It was talking about this, and they said, how did you get into acting? And he talks about there was originally a business decision. He started a movie called The Marine, and essentially, like, his boss was like, you do this movie and it's going to be good for this. And so he did like a couple of kind of boring movies that were just like, oh, we need a big fucking buff dude to not really act. But then he says in the video, he's like, so yeah, it's really not until I did the Fred movies where I was able to parody myself and kind of like show off those comedic chops that really people started to take him seriously as an actor.
Well, that's the irony of John Cena, right? Is that when he plays serious, like in something like F9, I don't think it works. It's when he's playing a comedy, like he said, like a parody of himself, that I think he shines, which weirdly makes me in this camp where I'm like, John Cena is better in Fred than he is in F9 because he's being silly and like one part that really, I think this might be in the first film, might be in the second film actually, that really like highlights how good of an actor he is he lives in the imaginary character of Fred's dad lives in his fridge, and he like opens the fridge to talk to him and he goes, "You can't see me," and then Fred's like, yeah, I can, or something like that, which is, I don't think, a very clever retort to the catchphrase. But my point is more that John Cena, having to deliver his catchphrase, does it with all the gusto and all the passion of a man who isn't sick of doing it, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
And if you're cast in this weird movie where this guy is talking in a high-pitched voice, then, like, I could see him being like, oh, do I really have to do... You can't see me, but he does it with full gusto. Yeah,
like he's but it is so fun. Like there would be no Peacemaker, there would be no The Suicide Squad without these movies.
Yeah.
And John Cena will be the first person to tell you that. He says these were the first movies he looked at not as a business decision and as being able to play a character, and it essentially says it was doing the Fred movies that made him fall in love with acting.
That's great. What a great anecdote.
And it's like, and good on John Cena for not, like, you said, oh, you wouldn't see him do one these days. I think he would, as like a nostalgia, as like a favor to those original movies. Wouldn't be above a cameo.
Which is all he really is in these movies anyway.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It is also worth mentioning as well, Siobhan Fallon Hogan, who plays his mum. I quite enjoyed her performance as well.
So she's really good in the first two. Really good. She's pretty good in the first two, and does like she plays like it's quite a dark joke. She's like depressed, I guess, is the joke. Like she gets home from work and she goes straight to nap, you know, and she sort of talks like this in some parts, but then when she starts dating Mr. Devlin, she starts talking like this, and then she talks like that for all of her scenes in Fred 3.
Yeah,
and I was like, "What?" She becomes a worse actor because of it.
She needs to rewatch the last one to get her character back.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
who was the director of Fred 2?
Fred 2 was a guy called John Fortenberry.
Well, that's not as funny as Clay Weiner.
Fred 3 Camp Fred was directed by a guy called Jonathan Judge, but written by a guy called Drew Hancock, and of course, cock being another word for penis, like wiener, so we do have
much like wiener
to the male genitals in the name.
That's what we want.
Our creatives. Yeah. So what is this movie about?
This movie is about Fred. It's the last day of school, and he's going off to summer camp at Camp Superior. But at the last moment, finds out his mum couldn't afford Camp Superior, so she's sending him to and get ready for a nice little stroll into problematic corner. Everybody, he's getting sent to a Cherokee Native American land for summer camp at a place called Camp Iwanapee, which is, of course, a racially insensitive, what's the word for it? Like a
name.
Play on what Cherokee language apparently sounds like. We talked about on the Rugrats episode of the what is it? What's the New Zealand one that people Waikikamuka?
Oh yeah.
It's like Waikikamuka because that supposedly sounds like Te Reo. So he goes to summer camp, and the first half of the movie feels like they wanted this to be the whole movie, but then they ran out of plot and had to change plot halfway through. So the first half is he thinks that his fellow campers are like up to something devious, and then he finds out that they're all good, and then they compete in the summer camp games alongside Camp Superior, where Kevin shows back up, which is essentially like a couple of days of like various games in which Camp I Want a PP must verse off against Camp Superior. It ends in a song. There are songs in this movie, and Fred and Camp I Want a PP ultimately win against Camp Superior, much to their chagrin. Here are some jokes I liked in Fred 3. You ready?
Yep.
So when he first gets to Camp I Want a PP, he's warned of the food, and then it cuts to him looking at what's available at the cafeteria. And he walks past one tray, and the label on the tray says gruel. And then he walks past the next tray, and the label on that tray says gluten-free gruel. And then he walks past a third tray, and the label on that tray says gruel. I don't even know if this was intended to be a joke, but it felt like a subversion of the rule of threes. To be like, it's supposed to get worse and worse, but then the third one's just the same thing. Moments later, he meets a character called Magoo. Who he's introduced to him when he's thinking of getting a glass of juice from this keg, and written on the keg is diet bug juice. And Magoo says, "You don't want to drink that. Let's just say they call it bug juice for a reason," which I thought was. What a crazy joke. And then again, moments later, when describing Camp I Want a PP fondly, Magoo says, "It's like summer camp on Earth," which I thought was a pretty good joke. And then later on, Fred's running around the camp and he's scared because there's the scary looking man like following him. And then one of the camp counselors like, "No, don't worry, that's just Scary Gary." And Fred says, "Scary Gary? If he's so harmless, he should have a less menacing name, like Scary Jerry or Scary Larry or Joey." And that's how it's delivered. Like, it's so strange. There's a scene, another scene where Fred wakes up and he thinks the whole movie's been a nightmare up until this point. And the filter on his voice is not there anymore. And he comments to his mum, who's at the foot of his bed, about how he just had a nightmare where he was at this crazy camp and his voice sounded like a chipmunk before finding out he actually is in the nightmare just then. I thought it was fun to hear Lucas Cruikshank's real voice. Later on in the film, he's so upset that he has to stay at this camp that he's hiding in the bushes crying, and then the other campers like Magoo and Dig and I can't remember the names of every one of them. They stumble across him and they're like, "What, Fred, were you crying?" And he goes, "No, I wasn't crying. Why would I be crying? I hate crying." Which again, that's a great reason for why you wouldn't be crying. When Fred and Kevin run into each other and find out that they're going to be versing off each other, they have an impromptu dance-off because they're both convinced that they're a better dancer than the others. And they both do these comically terrible dances at each other. It lasts about 10 seconds. And then Fred just while out of breath just goes, "I won." And I thought it was so funny to just declare victory, even though no one's judging the dance off. He just says, "I won." And it reminds me of when you're a little kid and they're like, "Actually, I have invincible armor on, and then I kill your character." And then, so the last joke I've written down is Tom Arnold plays the camp counselor in this. And this isn't the joke that I liked, but
Floyd Spunkmeyer.
Floyd Spunkmeyer at the start, he delivers what I thought was a horrendous joke for a Nickelodeon movie, where he says that I want a pee-pee is the native Cherokee greeting or something like that. And he says, so let me just...
the sun rises on all
yeah.
us or something like that.
And he says, so let me just extend this to you guys. I want a pee-pee on you. I want a pee-pee on you. I want a pee-pee on all of you. Which, what is... I guess the joke for kids is that you're talking about peeing on someone, and maybe my mind is just too warped to see that as anything completely non-sexual now, I guess.
Yeah, right.
Anyway, he has this whole thing in it about how he believes that there's a guy at the camp named Hugh who is their chosen one, who will lead them to victory against Camp Superior. But towards the end of the film, Fred accidentally knocks out Hugh with a javelin, and so they have to, compete without their star player, who is played by, I think, one of the grown-up twins from Desperate Housewives. Anyway. He sees this camp. Floyd sees Fred doing something. He might be singing or something, and he goes, "Oh my gosh, Fred is the chosen one. I'm certain of it, or maybe not. I don't know. How's my face look?" I wish from the start I was on the let's just celebrate how funny Fred is bandwagon, because this is a much funner and much sillier dynamic to have. But yeah, there's music in this. Do you remember Mr. Rebecca Black's Friday's actually good because you can remember how it goes? Do you remember the songs, how they go in this one?
No, because they're bad.
I remember, so the one that opens up, and it starts with a musical number, so it's like, oh my god. And then there isn't another one for 45 minutes. But it starts with him, it's cool, it goes like, the best day of school is the last day of school. The best day of school is the last day of school. It's just mind-numbing. And then there's a rap he does with a monster called a croco. What is it? Croco horse or something?
Crocoberamus.
Crocoberamus, which is just your standard man in his 50s writing a hip-hop reference that hasn't been relevant since the 90s kind of vibe. But then at the end, they actually win it by singing a song that goes, "This one's for the losers." And it's I'm not going to say it's good, but it feels like there's heart in it.
You've earned it,
yeah. And they end up winning because of that, and it's all very beautiful. Fred 3, Camp 3. I thought the worst one of the trilogy, to be honest.
Oh, yeah, sure. Yeah.
What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's the worst one of the three, but, obviously still not that bad.
I miss Bertha, man. I wanted Bertha and Fred to get together at the end of this.
Yeah. Yeah, unfortunate. That's the Fred trilogy, but I do think that we should talk a little bit more about Fred and Lucas Cruikshank, because I'm going to say something disgustingly controversial.
Okay.
Lucas Cruikshank might get it.
How dare you? Okay, what does this mean for maybe new listeners?
Yeah, I'm not talking about fuck, he can get it. Yeah, well, do you want to explain what getting it refers to?
Well, we have sort of the sacred term we bestow upon creators that we quite like on this podcast, where we will say they get it, which essentially means they have an understanding for why their product works, which isn't true. So Kevin Feige gets it, Vin Diesel does not get it.
Yeah.
Though that's the spectrum. Vin Diesel to Kevin Feige.
I think Lucas Cruikshank might be one of the only true auteurs we've seen on film franchise Fortnights, and I'm not joking.
I was thinking about this as well, and I think the way I want to phrase it is Lucas Cruikshank the worst genius? The worst genius in the world.
So genuinely, and this is what I was talking about earlier, is that the thing that makes these movies watchable and enjoyable, even if you're looking at them in a so bad they're good way, is that this is such a specific singular vision which you do not see very often. This is a movie where even you and I just listed a bunch of jokes that we giggled relentlessly at throughout these movies. And even the ones that, don't make you laugh are still that same exact sense of humor from this voice, from this kid. And
from this high-pitched voice.
yeah. But and that's the thing that I just found so fascinating about these movies, that this isn't you're not seeing a studio try to understand why Fred Fugglehorn works on YouTube and not being able to. This is a kid being given a budget and making exactly what he wants to make, and exactly and that's
well
that's
into his early 20s as well.
Well, no, actually, the last film he made when he was 19.
Okay.
But yeah, you're seeing someone's vision, and this is why I praise the Snyder Cut so much as well. And I think we're seeing Lucas Cruikshank's Snyder
Release
Cut.
the Cruikshank cut.
Yeah. I just, that was the thing I was blown away by, is that how specific the vision and sense of humor for these films are, and that you are seeing someone be able to see that vision through till the end, and that the entire crew seems to be in on it as well. The film is respecting Lucas Cruikshank's vision.
He puts his whole Lucas Crookatsi into it.
Fredussi into it.
It's Fredussi. No, and I mean that though. One thing, again, speaking on is he the worst genius, is if I'll use myself in this example. If I created a character when I was 13 who, no offense to Lucas Cruikshank, not the hardest concept to conjure up. It's just he sped up the voice in post, right? If I was making that and somehow that got insanely popular, and then Nickelodeon approaches me to make movies, I can tell you, at least when I was as a teenager, I think there'd be part of me that would feel like I'm a little kid in a big Hollywood, and the nerves would get to me, and I wouldn't quite be able to bring it's what the director told him. You need to remember how to play Fred. But he does it unabashedly in these movies. Lucas Cruikshank is presumably standing in front of, let's say, 10 at least crew members per scene, right? There'll be a cameraman,
and think of
a
what
director.
crew members look like. That they're gaffers and
people
just
who
sweaty
would just be this is not funny. I guarantee you, we could probably find a crew member from a Fred movie who was I quit filmmaking after working on this, right? And he's standing there in front of a camera with its slightly fisheye lens, and he's being oh my damn it, Judy moved away, and it's with entire sincerity, and just it's hard work. He knuckles down. Yeah,
and I can't help but respect that from Lucas Cruikshank. I could not do there's the scene where he's having a full on tantrum and just screaming and tearing his living room apart.
Oh, so it's funny. It's great.
It's funny. It is. And to do that in front of people who I'm sure do not find this funny. You're not getting any encouragement. The encouragement to continue doing this, exerting a lot of energy, is has to come from within.
Stone-faced filmmakers.
Yeah. But to be able to go into work every day to create this character, you have to believe so much in what you're doing on this set. And that's why I'm hats off to you, Lucas. And this is you had a vision, you have seen it through to the end, and I applaud you for that. And
when is it coming back?
Well,
I
mean, I guess we'll continue the franchise now then, because you've so perfectly segued into it.
Okay.
Why not? So Fred, there was after, not long after the release of Fred 3, there was Fred the Show, a 24-episode live-action TV show.
No way.
Starring Fred came out. Actually, it was slightly before, sorry. It finished just after the third movie came out, but started in early 2012. And it was cancelled after, and largely considered to be one of the worst television series of all time.
Well, I know what we're doing for film franchise follow-ups next month.
There's also an animated series as well called Hey It's Fred, but I think that's like a YouTube series.
Wow.
He's also got 2 albums. One's a Christmas, he's got an album and a Christmas EP. Which, maybe we could listen to those. For
maybe we could, Richard.
But also, there's a few other sort of things. So he appeared in an episode of iCarly, which, as I mentioned, I watched the episode where Lucas Cruikshank has his own YouTube channel, where he reacts to his appearance on that. It's quite funny hearing the behind the scenes stories and everything. But in the episode, Freddie Benson criticizes Fred, meaning that people turn on iCarly. I don't understand iCarly. I've never seen the show apart from the most I've ever seen of it is Lucas Cruikshank reacting to this. But I know that you're not a fan of the sense that like no one in real life would like these videos that they're making.
Yeah.
But there's a movie called City of Ember starring Tim Robbins.
Okay.
Where is Richard going with this?
Yeah.
So Walden Media hired Cruikshank to promote the City of Ember movie with the character of Fred, and so like Tim Robbins appears in some Fred episodes of his YouTube series. He was also on the Annoying Orange web series.
Tim Robbins. Oh my god.
And it's so funny, isn't it? But and just recently in the last year or two, Lucas Cruikshank has revived the character of Fred on the TikTok channel Hey It's Fred, and I tell you what, it's fucking hilarious. Because the idea, so Lucas Cruikshank, you watch his video, like the video I mentioned of him where he's reacting to the Fred movie is like he is kind of like, oh man, I fucking like you can tell he's kind of proud of it. But now that like this very open about his sexuality, Lucas Cruikshank now returning to play the character of Fred. As there's one TikTok that's like me at 13 obsessed with Judy, and then it's like and then it cuts to him like strutting, and it's like now me on the way to steal her husband, but as Fred, and then he's like, you're being obsessed with Judy, and then seeing what Kevin looks like now. It's like, oh my gamut. But it's very funny seeing like an openly gay Fred.
Good for Fred.
Yeah, good for Fred.
him.
Yeah. But so I would recommend checking out. People were like, oh my god, no, he's revived the character of Fred, but this TikTok's pretty funny. So do you have continue the franchise for Fred?
Yeah, let's bring Fred into the real world. This is a movie called Frederick. And I want a pitched down, so no modulation, earnest, dramatic recreation of the trilogy. I don't know if Cruikshank should play Fred, but like the idea being like, can you take story concepts as silly as this and try and turn them into prestige drama? The Frederick trilogy.
Figglehorn, a Logan-style send-off to the character.
Yeah.
Genuinely, if they announced a Fred 4, I would back that on Kickstarter. I would fucking love to see Fred 4. Like, with Lucas Cruikshank playing Fred now, especially if you have the openly gay Fred from TikTok. Like, where did this character end up in his mid-20s? And what's his dad, John Cena, up to these days? Like, this is actually one I would genuinely love to see a distant sequel to this. I would be there opening day.
Where do you think the rights to Fred lie? Like, do you think, surely do you reckon though? Like,
oh, well, yeah, I mean,
like they would have, surely when you've got a pre-established character, which you've said he's revived, presumably without the permission of Nickelodeon, like, you would hope that he's, some kind of deal was
the
made.
channel of Fred continued after the relationship with Nickelodeon.
Okay.
Yeah. Fred's funny, man.
I'm looking up Lucas Cruikshank on Cameo, but I don't think he does have it. Well,
oh, damn. I feel like it'd be expensive. Is Fred on Cameo?
No, but he is in an episode of Big Time Rush called Big Time Cameo.
Uh-huh.
Presumably referring to him.
Oh, I found an article from 2009. Says Fred movie update. Which cameo name is playing Dad?
Oh, well, now we know.
Yeah. Oh, so it says a little off topic, but the concept of a whole 90-minute movie featuring Fred Figglehorn in the works is still sinking in. That, and apparently is quite top. For those that missed it, there is in fact a Fred movie. Blah blah blah. According to the latest casting choices, Crookshank is indeed attached, though the rest of the roles appear to be wide open. With shooting beginning in November 20, they are looking to lock these up soon. For some reason, they are looking for cameo names only to play Fred's father. We're thinking Jim Carrey. The casting call.
Oh, posters, you know not the quality of the film that is being produced right about now.
The casting call for it says, Fred's father, he's a wildly eccentric character who encourages his son to follow his bliss and go after the girl of his dreams, seemingly unfazed by his nightmarish marriage to a real mess of a woman. He's relentlessly upbeat at all times. Please submit cameo names only.
What is this? Submit cameo names? Like, I guess John Cena's people submitted him.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's this gets sent out to agents, and it's like,
right.
we want this to be someone who's like actually kind of big.
Yeah, right. Nice.
So we've got a few other things to do. We kind of skipped a segment that we normally would do before this, but yeah, Meeting of the Elders. This is a segment where if you join a certain tier on our Patreon, which we plugged up top, you'll see #plug the Patreon up top, #2022, and here's the secret. What's the secret password we mentioned?
What's a word I'm looking at?
Bavaria.
Steamed hams.
Steamed hams. Okay, that's your secret password. Steamed hams. Plug the podcast. Plug the Patreon up top.
A compilation tribute of Gilbert Gottfried. Rest in peace.
And then that's how you'll get a patch or something like that. So there's a secret channel on our Discord. You can join if you join that Patreon tier, and send in your thoughts on the franchise, and we'll read them out on pod. So a few people did or did not watch along for this. Actually, everyone did or didn't watch along because
everyone in the world.
So Scotty doesn't know. Said, only seen the first one so far. As much as this movie leads on, it's funny because it's loud. There are some genuinely funny moments. It feels very 2010 with gags that seem like they were made on Vine, then cut into the movie. The supporting cast all seem like they're actually trying, especially the guy playing Kevin. It's not weird enough to be as memorable as something like Freddy Got Fingered. It's also let down by the fact that Fred is a straight up stalker who is also casual racist. I'm genuinely surprised there's not more memes from this. There is one meme that Lucas Cruikshank says he gets sent all the time, which there's a scene where he's like sitting on the bus at night and his reflections in the window, and it's the exact same shot as from Joker, and it's very funny. He's like, and he also kind of confirms in the video, like, yep, Fred became the Joker. That's canon.
Also, the subtle racism he's talking about is that when Judy moves out, an Asian family move in, and he decries it. He's like, Judy's been kidnapped by Asian people, which isn't, I don't know. Is it racist to say that? It certainly feels like it's piggybacking on, acceptable.
He probably wouldn't comment
racism
on their race if they were white.
yeah, exactly. I think that Freddy Got Fingered is infinitely worse than Fred.
Oh my god, so much worse than this.
I guess it's maybe more memorable, but not for any good reasons.
So, Bliss My Dog's Not Fred, which is it gets more and more complicated username every week. But said Fred the movie is one of the worst films I've ever seen. No exaggeration. Hated this movie. Hated the main character. Hated so much of it that it pains me. I have a lot to say, but instead of typing out big paragraphs that over-explain, here's my notes.
Oh god, gotta get just completely slingshotted back to earth with the cult elders segment. I'm like, yeah. You know what? Fred wasn't that bad. And now
I do love that I've convinced you over this time. We should have ranked it before we did this. Fred's age was upped from 6 in the YouTube series to 15 in the films. I get that it drives the needle of the love story, quotation mark, quotation mark, quotation mark, quotation mark.
It's got issues with it's like loyalty to the source material.
From completely and definitely illegal to simply disturbing and probably illegal. Maybe just drop the love story altogether. Fred being 15 misses the point of the character completely and does not work with him screaming and having temper tantrums every 3 minutes. I disagree. I think that's why it's funny.
Still very interesting to read a genuine respect for the original YouTube series.
Yeah. Please don't adapt 10-minute YouTube videos into feature films anymore. This character was not meant to sustain a feature film. What a short-sighted trend that was. YouTuber movies. Ugh.
Yeah, does Smosh have sequels?
No, and then there's also Airplane Mode starring Logan Paul, which was a similar one. And there's also that Logan Paul one that's like a drama where like if you fail your test results you get killed, something stupid. Anyway, I liked the bully. It was on YouTube, Red. I liked the bully and everyone who was mean to Fred. His mum has a lot of unfortunate implications surrounding her that aren't worth the effort to think about. I think that's kind of like one of those dark jokes in the film for the parents. Fred's voice is far from the worst thing about him, which is interesting perspective. I never fully understood the nature of Fred and Judy's relationship from her perspective. Does she like him or hate him? Is she aware that he stalks her?
I feel like this is made clear in the film.
Yeah, I don't know if Bliss here is talking about from the YouTube side. I mean, I don't know.
Presumably, Bliss is like quite familiar with.
Yeah, well, yeah. I'm gonna in my head canon is that Bliss is a massive Fred YouTube fan that hated the movies and the adaptations.
Yeah.
The scene of Fred at Judy's is literally the hardest I've ever cringed at a movie and perhaps the least self-aware scene I've ever seen. It pained me. I suffered. I wanted to throw up until Fred threw up and then I just wanted to die. Then he ate his vomit. I don't want to live with this plane anymore. Funny stuff. The following part's kind of funny. Fred getting his head chopped off. Yeah, there's a bit where he talks about how if he doesn't eat, his head will fall off because he'll have no blood in it and then his head falls off. And it's very clearly just a mannequin and he pulled his shirt up over his head.
Yeah. And then it happens in the third one as well. And it's just, they've done so little to make it look like his head's fallen off.
The pet store owner threatening Fred with mace. Funny stuff. Fred saying damn on a dam. And also the pet store owner was played by the rival dean in Community. I noticed him from there. Fred saying damn on a dam and the drunk mom asleep as a DJ. The rest was atrocious in every way imaginable. Oh, and to the guy who suggested Fred in the Patreon poll, you are a heathen! I fart in your general direction. May God have mercy on your eternal soul for subjecting me to this torment. Dan from Hawaii, that very person who suggested it, replied with some kind of emoji. Okay. And probably a Monty Python reference, and then said, I'd like to apologise for suggesting Fred. It seems to have brought more pain.
Can we just take a... Sorry, Dan. Can we just take a moment to reflect that after an hour and a half of praising the comedy of Fred, you just very, disgruntled mentioned, Monty Python, probably a Monty Python reference. We're only interested in real comedy legends here on the Cult Podcast.
Well, I think Monty Python is stupid. I would much rather watch Fred 4 than a Monty Python reunion.
Wow, that's the real hot take. You don't get these kind of takes on more popular podcasts.
Would you not? If they said, "Oh, Monty Python are doing it," the surviving members of Monty Python are doing another movie about cancel culture, or Fred in college, as when he discovers his sexuality. Which movie would you rather watch?
Which I tell me the budgets, then I'll decide.
They're the same.
Okay, well, it's either going to be a very bad Monty Python movie or a very good Fred movie. Would I rather watch probably a new movie from Fred? But I'm not going to say that Monty Python's old stuff is tossed out completely necessarily. Fuck it, I will. Fuck Monty Python. Yeah. Fred is the new Monty Python.
Yeah. I'd like to apologise. This is Dan in Hawaii who suggested Fred for the last wee while.
The last 2
Scotty
years.
doesn't know is typing right now as well. Hurry up, Scotty. We're doing the segment right now. I'd like to apologise. This is Dan. I'd like to apologise for that. This is Dan. I'd like to apologise for suggesting Fred. It seems to have brought more pain than entertainment to the Cult Popture Discord community over the past 20 months of me suggesting the franchise every single Patreon poll. It started as a, I bet you'll have a new bottom-ranked film, and then slowly amassed loyal voters who warmed to the idea of the podcast covering a complete waste of human hours. I never wanted anyone to suffer their short films and thought it would add variety to the type of film of franchises covered. I'm going to watch all 3 films soon after this episode drops. Sunday in America, Monday in New Zealand, in a marathon charity stream. I hope to raise a few $100 in order to atone for my sins. And there's links in the Discord to Dan's thing. Scotty has said, I just wanted to know what the results of franchise is.
What?
Okay. So, Dan is doing a charity watch of this film, but happening probably just a few hours after this episode comes out. And
Dan's so apologetic, but you know what?
I had a fucking great time.
You brought us so much joy, Dan.
Yeah. I think, again, one of our best episodes might be, I think. And so
Time
I think
to rank this franchise.
Trying to rank this franchise. So, if you go to letterboxd.com/popsha, you can find our lists there where you'll see. Oh, also, we didn't mention it, but Camp Fred is the 666th film we've watched for the podcast.
And just like the devil himself, not that bad.
Yeah. So, I'm going to add Fred the movie to this. Is this a Gold Star franchise?
Sure. Basically.
Yeah, fuck it, let's do it.
The Gold Star franchise is what we give franchises gold stars if we feel that a consistent quality remains throughout.
Yeah. All right. And where do we think this goes?
What do you want to do here, man? It's very fun to be like, actually, it's good, but are we like, I'm not sure it's that good. What are you thinking?
Where would you place it without me?
Well, you've convinced me, so that's a hard.
Oh, well, I mean, like just this rank, like you can keep the whole podcast, but if it was just you ranking it, if I had to go now and you were left to rank it yourself,
I'd probably put it pretty low, Richard. I'd probably put it maybe 140 to 46 in front of Medea.
Right.
I feel like you're not going to be willing to go that low, though.
Well,
okay. We turn on a dime again right now.
I mean, it is funny, like, doing this, because you look and you're like, you look up at some of the films we have at the bottom, and you're like, oh yeah, like, you know, Medea, Land Before Time, the original Mummy series, these are all bad. And then you scroll up a little bit, and you see something like Pup Star, like 30 positions higher, and I'm like, Fred's probably better than Pup Star.
Yeah, the rankings are fundamentally broken.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think that's more a problem with Pup Star being too high than...
Yeah, well, part of me just doesn't want to give people the satisfaction of being like, haha, we put them through something terrible, because you absolutely did not. This was one of the franchises I've more enjoyed watching than half of these.
How about this? If you put a gun to my head and said you have to watch the Fred movies again, or one of these franchises,
yeah,
the franchise I'd probably be willing to watch again over Fred would be 300, which is at 138. So I'd put it...
well, what about Yu-Gi-Oh?
Where is that? God, why
131.
Nah, I'd probably rather watch Yu-Gi-Oh. Like, that's what I'm saying.
You admitted it.
I would rank Fred by myself at 139 above the Hammer Mummy series, which feels similarly blasphemous, and the Phantasm series.
Okay, cool. Well, we're doing a re-rank at some point, so
we keep saying that.
All right, so it's going at 139, below 300 above the Hammer Mummy series. Cool. All right.
You heard it here first, folks. Cool. All right. So, usually at this point we do franchise roulette where we randomly draw the next franchise that we're going to do. But we have a thing we've planned where we've got a fun guest on who's going to join us next fortnight for our next franchise. And before I tell you what that franchise is, everybody, so that you can watch along, I would just like to say that if you enjoyed this podcast, skyrocket us to Fred-size success. Get us get us our own Nickelodeon straight-to-TV movies, and you can do that by supporting us by liking us or following us on Twitter and Instagram. And as we've talked about numerous times, you can also donate to us on Patreon if you like, or you can email us at cultpopturemedia@gmail.com, or you can join our Discord community, which is always really fun. But Richard, do you want to tell the people what our next franchise is?
Yes, so the next franchise we're going to be covering are the 5 films in the Sleepaway Camp franchise. So I can tell you what those films are as well, because it's quite funny. One second. Sleepaway Camp film series. So that consists of Sleepaway Camp, Sleepaway Camp 2, Unhappy Campers, Sleepaway Camp 3, Teenage Wasteland, the 4th film, Return to Sleepaway Camp, and the 5th film, Sleepaway Camp 4, The Survivor. There is, obviously, you could probably imagine a fun behind-the-scenes reason for that, but we will get to that in 2 weeks' time.
With a very special guest. Feel free to speculate who that may be. But yeah, other than that, thank you very much for listening, everybody, and stay tuned for the post-credit scene, which is coming at you after the music stops. Oh my gamut, what a fun time. Turns out, Richard, there's a little bit of Fred in all of us.
The real Fred was the friends we made along the way.
The Freds we made.
Yeah, I know you hate that joke.
Okay.
To Ed.
I don't think that's going to read, man.
Yeah. Welcome along to the post-credit scene.
This is a segment at the end of each episode where if you donate $5 or more over at patreon.com/cultpopture, you get to give us something to talk about in the post-credit scene. Richard, can you tell me what it do? What it be?
What it do? This comes to us from Brent Taylor, who says, without rehashing the Lord of the Rings / Hobbit conversation, which one very good movie has the legacy of the worst franchise? I think that's a very easy question. It's Jaws. Anyway, thank you for writing in, Brent.
No, yeah, it's Jaws.
Yeah. Yeah, I can't. Can you think of any other major examples?
I mean, I'm looking. I wouldn't even say The Hobbit drags
Lord
of the Rings
I
down
think you mean
that much.
Yeah, right. I mean, you famously say that all the time, but there's no other ones I can think of that have like major. There's a lot of. Oh, did you know American Psycho, Donnie Darko have a bad sequel?
Yeah.
But Jaws is the interesting one where it's like it's a franchise and it's one of the greatest movies of all time, followed by Terminator 2. As well, another one?
No, but they don't go to the same depths as Jaws.
Yeah, sure. Yeah,
Maybe
yeah.
Rambo, if you're a big fan of First Blood.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess when you talk about like when you specifically the way you worded it is like that the legacy of the worst franchise, that when people go, that's a bad franchise, And I think Jaws, they probably do.
The answer is Jaws. Thank you, everybody.
Yeah, thank you, Bru. Anyway, yeah, there's no answer more perfect than Jaws. I'm sorry.